So I first give the floor to Walter. Walter Rossing, Associate Professor at the Farming Systems Ecology Group of Wageningen University in the Netherlands. In Diver Impact he has led Work Package 2 together with Luca Colombo of FIRA, and he was also a monitor of 2 case studies. So the floor is yours.
Yeah. Thank you, Daniel. I think I'll stand here for a bit to give your eyes a bit of a change. And I can still see the computer, so that's fine. So when we started with Diver Impact, we had a number of entry points to research and innovation. And the first one was that transforming monocropping would require more than just scientific research. It would also require combining scientific knowledge and practical knowledge so as to develop actionable knowledge. And that then is context-specific knowledge that assists actors in their decision-making to be better positioned to achieve their goals. So you have to know something about the actors and you have to know about their knowledge in addition to the scientific knowledge. And we considered projects very much as temporary travel companions to the innovators. So that required projects to think long-term, act in the short term, and take time to create a legacy. We accepted complexity in research and innovation. So we said change happens in unpredictable ways. So not from A to B to C as can be planned ahead in any project proposal, supposedly. No, we said we need to take into account a way that is context sensitive in our governance of the project. And therefore we resort to crafting. We're all engineers, most of us, so crafting should be easy for us to create a context-sensitive research and innovation approach. And then the only failure is the failure to learn from mistakes. And that we needed a term, so that we called co-innovation, also for historical reasons, with 3 domains: complex adaptive systems, social learning setting, and monitoring and evaluation. And the complex adaptive systems perspective allowed us to think in terms of nested socio-technical systems, field, farm, region, but also value chains, and the innovation system as a whole, emergent behavior due to the complexity and requirement of adaptive management at all of those levels. The social learning setting allowed us to develop a perception on what others perceive, how others perceive these systems, what their needs are, and to concentrate on networks of actors rather than individuals, and forging those networks. So that really led us to think about how we see the world. Then we had the monitoring and evaluation, of course for accountability, because our donors rightly want to know that we're spending the money wisely. But very much in our project also for learning. Learning about are we doing the right things, as Hauke said this morning. So to engage in reflexivity. Are we anticipating the unexpected? Are we taking into account that we cannot know everything beforehand? So how did we then implement that at the project level? We used a very difficult work package scheme, a matrix, where on the horizontal, along the horizontal rows, let's say, horizontal lines, we had the scientifically oriented, analytically oriented work packages and the case studies, 25 of them, with the innovators inside along the vertical axis. And that allowed, in the overlap, interactions between the scientists and the innovators. And we try to promote learning through different means, I'll come back to that, towards the project impacts. From Work Package 2, we try to monitor the exchanges between the work packages and the case studies with schemes that said, this is not a match, that is a match, this is matchmaking ongoing. And we try to respond to emerging needs through webinars, some 20 over the past 4 years, not in the first year, a seed money fund as a kind of experiment to say, well, we have money that is not labeled for each of the case studies, and if the ideas are out of the box, if they are supported by the actors in financial means or in kind means, and if they are contributing to the case study strategy, then you can use that money. So that was in fact an experiment. Then that was at the project level. Now at the case study level, we had a structure with 25 case study teams, a leader and a monitor, 5 clusters, which with each 5 case studies inside them, thematically organized and later on reshuffled due to progressing insight, and together they constituted the Learning for Innovation platform. And we developed a common way of learning and dedicated a lot of time and therefore money and people's energy to that. Through co-innovation workshops, 15 in total, 5 for each cluster of case studies. We dedicated the first year, not conventionally, to exploring, not necessarily to producing results already, but to exploring a vision and a mission that would really make sense to the actors and allow traction during the rest of the period of the project. And then engage in action and reflection cycles down here with thinking in the short term during quarterly meetings between the cluster leader and the case studies. So every 3 months you got a call from your cluster leader. Quite an intensive process. And annually learning histories and biographies to put on paper what you had done, what you had thought you would do, and what you would get out of it, and why then the difference occurred, and what that meant for next steps. So the insights are then, well, despite the same way of working, we see that case studies had very different activity trajectories. And this is work by Len Gorissen, Yvonne Kuipers and Margot Leclerc. And they distinguished from the learning histories of the case studies 11 activity types after having asked the case studies what were your most important activities. And you see here for 3 random case studies that here's the start of DIVA impacts, this is halfway. You see very different colors and very different numbers, just to indicate how different these 3 case studies developed, with very different activities and very different sequencing them over time. So here the blue is, for instance, action plan development and generating knowledge. And that you see across all the case studies also appear halfway through, where they were putting in the groundwork, let's say, laying the foundation for their joint work, and finally showing a large diversity of activities, including technical assistance, influencing public policy, promoting certain models, and what have you. Yeah, so there you see that. So this is across, but see the great diversity in each of the case studies. And that's due to case study age, the system focus, production, field farm, or also the value chain, or even the food system, as in some case studies. And obviously, at the personal level, big differences in experience. And then we looked at the assessment methods, and we found that process indicators were relevant throughout. Learning histories we really identified now as a useful tool, and we take that as a legacy. The quantitative indicators increased in relevance as the case studies matured in our analysis. So early on, there's not so much relevance for the case studies, apparently, in terms of complete sustainability assessments. First, it's creating that energy and generating those networks. And then later on, you can do sustainability assessment. We also asked about the usefulness of our tools, about the co-innovation workshops, the fact that there was a case study monitor in addition to the leader, the monitoring itself, quite time-consuming, but still not poorly rated. And you see that this all contributed to social learning, social capital building, and empowerment of the innovators. We also share here an insight that we see a change in the perception of how to do projects. So usually project plans are fixed from the start. Now here we try to provide leeway, and this is a very important element of the leadership of our project, that they supported this creation of leeway. And the change of the plan in our case was not a failure, as long as you learn. And also we try to get away from using projects as a way to fund business as usual, or the projectivization of organizations. You are in the project because you want to bring to advance your specific missions, not so much to just create funding. And we identified ample opportunity for on-the-fly learning across projects. We unfortunately obtained very few insights from sibling multi-actor approach projects or from the EC reviews. So here for next round in Horizon Europe, there is still ample scope for improvement. Now conclusions then, and I hope you all found our policy brief on that, which explains it in more detail. Our conclusion is that research and innovation projects in Horizon 2020, and hopefully less so in Horizon Europe, are as yet underexploited resources for this pressing how-to question. So how are we going to bring about these transitions and transformations that are needed? And we think we have co-innovation as a context-sensitive multi-actor approach developed a bit further as part of this project. We identified 3 key mechanisms of producing that actionable knowledge. That is stimulating social learning, empowering actors, and building social capital. This is very abstract, but we can also show the nitty-gritty and the how-to do this. And we think that more effective research and innovation requires changes in researchers, in practitioners, and in research policy design. More specifically, we think that the idea of gathering multiple actors around the table just in itself is not sufficient, but you need to add to that a way of governing the project and all the elements within the project. So, for instance, to build indicator frameworks for social learning. How do we know that we are understanding each other better, or that we are understanding the problem better? At the level of the case studies, but also at the level of the project. And interestingly, we have developed a project there, and Mirjam Schoonhoven is here in the room. Together with INRAE and Berg, we are looking at diver impacts as a whole from that perspective. Did we do the right things? How did we create that leeway? The second point is to build science-society alliances already before the start of the project and secure the legacies. And we have very concrete proposals to get that done before the start, so as not to start from scratch time and again. Finally, to create more flexibility for project managers to respond to emerging developments. If things happen in an unexpected way, can we adjust the consortium, the allocation of funding within the work packages, but also between work packages? And you can read in more detail what that, in our opinion, means for research policy design, going from the current situation and trying to be as specific as possible to a new situation. Thank you.
Yes, thanks, Walter. Next thing, 2 videos. So Walter talked about 25 case studies, and unfortunately we don't have time to give floor to all 25. But first, a video about a successful diversification initiative based on production on soft fruits, vegetable and oil crops from Poland. Jaroslav, you are here. Hello, say hi to Jaroslav. Professor of Agronomy at the Institute of Soil Science and Plant Cultivation in Puławy, Poland. and monitor of KCDT.
Our case study is an organic farm, which means that from a definition it is a very diversified farming system. The key crop diversification strategy was based on very diversified crop rotation. It's obvious, as I mentioned, because it is an organic farm, but an additional important and quite unique crop diversification strategy was based on intercropping, which in this case meant that the farmer cultivated different crops in one field. In our case study that made difficult crop diversification was the structure of the network developed. Within this network there were quite a lot of different farmers dispersed in quite big area, and these were usually small farmers, and there were some logistic problems. Another important problem the case study and the cooperating farms had to meet was connected with the fact that most of them were stockless farms without any animal production. This was connected with the problems how to cope with the crop waste, and at the same time where to find enough organic fertilizers. One of the key characteristics of our case study is the production of natural oils from rapeseed, flax and pumpkin. The processing takes place in the local small natural oil processing factory belonging to the leader of our case study, Tomasz Obszański. At the same time, Tomasz was thinking how to properly utilize the byproducts, and he found a solution. It was pig farming that was established within his case study 2 years ago. Our case study is representing a very innovative farm, and during this 3-4 years of the project time we were able to share our experience with other case studies. At the same time we were able to gather quite a lot of different experiences from other case studies that were quite similar. I think I would say much about it, but during last months we were able to conduct a very successful educational campaign at local schools near our case study. During this campaign we were informing the pupils about the advantages and the positive points of eating of local and organic food. And thanks to this campaign we will be able to concentrate more on local value chains than on the longer value chains. Instead of selling the products far away in big cities, we will be able to sell our products locally.
We're actually trying to catch the trend and enhance the trend of people being more interested in legumes. So and the problem is that many people are buying legumes that are imported. So we are trying to introduce that you could also produce even lentils, or you can change chickpeas that is difficult to grow in Sweden. You can change that to old varieties of peas that are very possible to substitute chickpeas. So the idea is to increase the Swedish acreage of grain legumes and enhance the trend of increase eating of legumes.
Well, of course, there were a lot of challenges. At one level, you could see the challenge of equipment for sorting and cleaning of intercropped crops. At another level, you had lack of knowledge at the consumer level about the benefits of local legumes on environment, on health, and also how nice food dishes you can make. And at the other level, we saw a lack of connection between consumers, farmers, and retailers. So that we wanted to solve.
We have organized a kind of course for how to dry legumes in a way that is very suitable also for small-scale drying. And we will also prepare also a presentation of different small-scale machinery for separating and cleaning. So that is one way. And then with the consumer way, with consumer track and keeping the demand high, we are working together with a nature protection organization, and we have had an education for volunteers, people that really want to work with this mission. And we have, together with a food consultant, we have introduced the concept of food jam, where people can come and then they take part themselves of making food, and you can make so many nice dishes with legumes. So that is one thing that we have done, and our food consultant has also produced new recipes that you can easily reach on the web. So that kind of things we are doing.
Well, to have a successful co-innovation process, you need to reach a dialogue and not a debate and discussion. So for that purpose, Direct Impact encouraged us to use vision and mission formulation together with the participants. So we did that, and that was very important, I think, for the continuing process. And also the seed money was very important. For example, we could have an exchange with England with a case study there, so we could go to get them and they could go to us to have some exchange. And also in general, I think that the Direct Impact researchers were very flexible. They really respected the need for us to adapt the process according to our local context. So I think that the connection to Direct Impact has been very important for us, and hopefully we have also been important for the researchers in Direct Impact. Well, formulation of the vision was actually the beginning of the legacy. As that was quite challenging, we had to realize that we had to go on working, so we formed a larger network where we are now, and we have got some money to support it for a couple of years, and then after that we hope that it will be self-supporting. And the goal is to reach the vision in 2028.
Actually, two Flemish case studies. So, Anja Maart is advisor organic agriculture at Bioforum. The sector organization, yes, thanks, very good to have some light, for Flemish organic agriculture and food, and Lieven, head of department of organic production at INAGO, both an applied researcher and an advisor, organic agriculture advisor, I would say. Okay, Anne, can you tell me something about one case study, and I will ask Lieve to do the other one.
Okay. So Lieven and I are case study leader and monitor in each other's project case studies. My case study that I do together with Michelle there is about enhancing Interfarm, it's called. It's about enhancing the cooperation between animal and crop production producers, because we saw that in Flanders, like in the rest of Europe, I think, farms are getting very specialized and don't know each other anymore. So we did this Interfarm because we want the farmers to exchange land, feed, manure, and to get to know each other better.
And I introduced already my case study in the morning. We wanted to reintroduce again cereals and legumes for human consumption in intensive Flanders rotations.
Yes, maybe Anne, can you say something about what kind of activities did you do in your case study? Just to give the audience a picture on that.
Well, we already knew that trust was something vital to have these farmers connect and cooperate. So our case study was a lot about building trust between these farmers. And we did this in several levels. We worked with 3 couples of farmers, dairy and crop arable producer. We brought together. Then on a Flemish level, we brought the whole organic sector together, which is not that big. But where we brought them together to discuss common topics, to exchange the needs they both have, and to network, because normally those sectors don't interact. They are in their separate networks. And thanks to the seed money, we also could organize regional meetings in a radius of 15-20 kilometers, so that farmers there also knew each other better, and which was a seed also for more cooperation.
So, and Lieven, could you say something on in your case study or in these case studies, how was, because you're experienced in working with different group of actors, many years of experience, but can you mention differences compared to other projects as we have done, as you have done in your case study?
Yes, well, for me, very specific to Diver Impact was that co-innovation work. Normally we jump in a project and you see, okay, that's the work packages, that's what we want to reach. But here was, okay, you're in the project, and the first thing in the co-innovation workshops was to pass afterwards, reflect. Reflect on what are your purposes, what your vision, what your mission, what you want to achieve, what's your strategy, and that was rather new to me. We are used to action, but it's important to reflect. We don't used to reflect, but even it was more stressed. And this was during the whole project, and also, it was already mentioned by Walter, at the end of the project, you're not asked what were your results, you're asked what are your learnings. And also during the project, I was very surprised by the support of Walter, even as a very busy professor. He knew to ask the right questions on the co-innovation workshops, the short meetings, even remotely with Anita, as an outsider, just leave what are you doing. But also I used with Anne already to work for many years. And even this relation as lead and monitor, when this was confirmed, I could deepen this relation. This was for me very nice in this project.
Thanks. Do you have something to add, Anne?
Well, I think we are used as an organic support system of it to work in a system as a whole, and I think this whole project of Diver Impact really supported this and more. I really appreciate the case study leader monitor aspect, but also the talks with Luca as a cluster leader, and with Anita, it deepened really our case study. And maybe at last, I really appreciate also the work that Antoine and the work package leaders did to bridge with the other European projects, likewise projects, so that it really gets a legacy. So we had trust that even with all the work we were doing, it would get a dimension higher as well.
Thanks. And maybe a final question, Anne. Do you have something that deserves more attention? What could we do better the next time?
Well, I think I can speak for myself and maybe the rest as well. We really appreciated the co-innovation workshops, but we were a bit sad that after 2 or 3 years, I think, it stopped and was, well, we had these webinars online, but that is not the same. I appreciated also that the co-innovation workshops were 2 whole days or sometimes 3, where we really matched together, get to know each other there, and also have the trust to go deep. So that could have been maybe.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Lieven and Anne, for this contribution. Give them a hand. And then the next thing I'm going to do is to invite Roy, Rosemarie, Dirk, and Luca to the stage. About what's happening when those actors are going to exchange among each other. And Dirk, you've already been introduced. He's a colleague of me at Wageningen University in Research. Rosemarie, director of the Hemes Foundation, supporting the transition to nature-inclusive agriculture in the Netherlands. And Roy, a farmer, a pioneer farmer at ERF, also a partner in our consortium. The biggest private farm in the Netherlands, and they started strip cropping in 2015, isn't it?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, very good. And give me a moment to introduce Luca. Luca Colombo.
We know.
Yeah, of course, but you know, you have to do so many things, then you're going to write things down. So Luca, Secretary General of the Italian Foundation of Research in Organic and Biodynamic Agriculture. That's what FURAP is standing for. In Diver Impact, he has co-led with Walter Work Package 2, but he was also a cluster leader and case study leader of 2 case studies, so really involved. Roy, maybe I can start with you, because actually you're having like strip cropping on your farm, but it's also strip cropping with a design of a scientific experiment. Why?
Yeah, why? Is it on?
I'm not sure. No, it's not.
Okay, thank you. Now, as you mentioned, we started in 2015 with strip cropping. We learned about strip cropping because on the trial fields of Wageningen, they already started with strip cropping on small fields. And the results were very promising, especially for us, the effect on potato-late blight. We saw that within strips there was less vulnerability for potato-late blight than in monocultures. And that was for us one of the reasons to start. But we still had some questions how to organize that and how to do that on our farm. And that was also the moment that we get in contact with Dirk, Wageningen University, and sit together and make a plan. Okay, how can we apply strip cropping on our farm, and can we make a design wherein we can test different strip widths, but we also can test the yield and also the effect on pests and diseases, so that we can learn that it has what is the effect of the strip cropping, and hopefully that we can learn or see the same things that was done.
Okay, and are you learning from it?
Yeah, we are definitely learning.
Okay, very good, very good. Roy, maybe a question for you. Dirk. What are actually for you as a researcher the benefits to have like an on-farm field trial instead of one of the Wageningen field trial farms we have them?
Yeah, well, it's actually a very simple answer. That's just credibility. Hey, you can get any result in a scientific trial, but if a real farmer is doing it, then you just bring policy makers or farmer there and they believe you, because it's done in practice.
Thanks. So that's how you use it. Okay. Rosemarie, a question for you. You're only 2 months at Hemes, I know, but Hemes is also organizing masterclasses strip cropping and strip cropping trainings. for farmers, or I don't know, who's actually joining those masterclasses and trainings?
Well, I think mostly farmers, and sometimes also some lecturers from the education institutes. Yeah, and we're organizing it together with Erf, of course, and with Dirk, the one with the theory and the one with the practical experience.
Yes, and what's the benefit for you to have like also a real farm to visit during those courses?
Yeah, well, I think so, and Erf is our partner organization, and they have a lot of experience. So it's and they are farmers, and farmers together it's better.
They always have a connection.
They also have a connection, yeah. But with this, but they go visiting to other farms in the Netherlands.
Okay, and
I can Daniel, because I give that course as well, and we always go to a field with these farmers. They want to change to strip cropping, but we go to the field and then the discussion happens. Of course, I can give nice slides, etc. But once in the field, they start touching the soil, they start looking at the plants, and then they get enthusiastic, and then they are interested in theory. So it's really crucial to have this field, to see how does it work.
Okay, Roy. How does like the strip cropping? So you've now 2 locations where you have strip cropping. How does that affect how you participate in regional and national networks? Does that change something?
Yeah, I think it changed. First side, we have a lot of interest of other farmers that want to visit the strip cropping field, but we also see that the province, the government also want to visit and to see what we are doing and try to learn from it. We already are also involved now in new research projects to further develop the strip cropping experiment on our farm.
Yes, thanks. And Rosemarie, so the goal of HEMES is actually to work with different actor groups towards a more nature-inclusive agriculture. How do you do that at HEMES, and what's the benefit of like involving those actors to reach that goal?
We work together with, as an example, landscape management organization, because they also like to combine nature and agriculture, like agroforestry, and together with strip cropping, and that is very good to work with Erf together. And also we work together with citizens of Almere, that's the 5th largest city of the Netherlands, to involve them with this kind of agriculture.
Yes, nice. So also citizens actually.
Citizens, policymakers,
nice.
Farmers,
And Dirk, I also know you are involved in projects and training the future farmers, because that's also, I think, a really important target group. What do you do and what do you see when you train the future farmers?
Yeah, so that's other students of the university, and that's again credibility, and real farmers do it, so they can interview Roy, okay, why are you doing it? It's more believable. Also, they see the real practice, so they do their measurements on a large-scale field. So how do you actually assess the yield? And it's really for them, it's possible. And they go home, and it's an international audience in the university, and they think, okay, maybe I tried. Now you see many all over the world actually. You think, okay, I have to change my way of cropping.
Thanks. Let's go on to Italy. Also strip cropping. How's strip cropping in Italy actually more specific? What did you do with strip cropping in one of your case studies?
Okay. Differently from the Netherlands, in Italy strip cropping was a novelty 5 years ago and still is. So it was developed in case study 22, which is in the mid-Adriatic coast in 3 farms. And in parallel also in a field experiment carried out by CREA. So it was an opportunity, as Dirk said, for mutual learning, how street cropping can be applied in real farming context, and how the farmers can learn from a field experiment in experimental conditions. So the point is that we are still learning. It is still in its development and limited to a few farms.
Okay, and I know you encountered some bottlenecks, so what were the main bottlenecks to overcome for the Italian case?
Well, of course, there are many. From a technical point of view, in the case study farms, we applied street cropping in hilly conditions, and so the technique was a bit more difficult than in the Dutch context, for instance. But this was not the main problem. Well, FIRAP, my organization, took over from the case study leading organization more or less a couple of years ago, and so we started to discuss with the farmers, and then we realized that the major bottleneck was about the capped payments, in the sense that street cropping was not foreseen in the cap procedure, so the farmers had difficulties in getting the funds. And so thanks to the collaboration with the Dutch colleagues, we got in touch first with the Dutch payment agency that explained to us some procedures that are in place in the Netherlands. And then they put in contact me with the Italian paying agency, which is a sort of alien body. It's very difficult to get in touch with them and to discuss with them, so I had to go through the Netherlands. But I succeeded in learning that indeed this is not foreseen in the actual payment schemes. So while in the Netherlands, for instance, in the strategic plan, it is street cropping is in the eco scheme menu. So it's already institutionalized, while it's not foreseen in Italy. So this is a major bottleneck, as capped payments contribute to a substantial part of the farm income. So for the farmers, it was a major issue.
Yeah. So there you see like the benefits of that multi-actor approach just in your context, for example, but also in the European context. It's an example of connecting the right actors. How are you going to proceed? How do you see strip cropping in Italy or in that region the next years?
Yeah, we intend to insist and persist with strip cropping, and notably one of the case study 22 farmers is currently leading a proposal submitted to the regional administration for an innovation project, an operational group on street cropping. So we have a farmer leading the group. CREA and FIRAP will be the scientific partners, and also other regional organizations and farmers will be involved. So let's see if we'll be successful, but the point is to continue to experiment and to innovate on street cropping, to explore this potential, but also to address these administrative barriers, in the sense that we want to engage with the regional administration and also with the national payment agency in order to address the bottleneck that I already mentioned, and to see if we can, let's say, clear the way for street cropping, which is considered by the man in the payment agency as a valuable practice, but it is not in the list of administrative procedures. So we want to find a way to make the matching.
Yeah. So still work to be done.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for your contributions. Dirk, Roy, Luca. And then the next step we're going to do is to have a connection with somebody online, Inge van Oost. So we're going to do a sound check. Hopefully it's working well. Inge is Policy Officer, Research Innovation and ACIS Knowledge Exchange at DG Agri for the European Commission, and involved in developing the concepts of multi-actor approach and thematic networks in Horizon 2020 projects. So Inge.
Yes, thank you. Everything fine. It was a very interesting session. As you understood, I missed the
Yes.
videos, but the last panel discussion was very familiar to me because we work under the cap with EIP operational groups, which have the same principle, the interactive innovation model, as multi-actor projects, and there were a lot of things that I recognized. And it's also nice to hear that what you built up with your multi-actor approach project on the horizon will now be taken up in Italy. I see that. You see me?
Yes, we see you.
Yeah, okay, yeah. What comes out of this Horizon Multi-Actor project is now going into a CAP-funded innovation project. They call it operational groups under the EIP on strip cropping. So for me, this is a first element to emphasize that we need to keep this connection between the more local operational groups, where you can do small tests like what you did in your case studies, and connect that as much as possible with our multi-actor projects, because through operational groups you can find really, like in your case studies, the link to the local based and context-specific elements, and then through your European project, you can share them across the different member states, and you can learn from each other. It was nice to hear, for instance, that the Italian paying agency could learn a little bit from the Dutch paying agency, and that's the nice part of European projects, of course.
Maybe Inge, if I may, because I have a question that's also linking to that learning, but also that learning between projects. So I guess we can say that the transformation of agriculture is built on learning and about building the social capital and empowerment. So that's such cross-project learning. What I now often see is in a call that you have to engage, exchange with a sister project or a couple of sister projects. But do you see possibilities, ideas? Do you have ideas to facilitate this more from the EC point of view? To really have that learning, and not only exchanging, but that learning together with likewise projects?
To foresee learning with, I haven't understood.
Actually, do you see possibilities to really facilitate as a European Commission the learning between projects?
Absolutely. We have on the EIP website, this is our network, that we have all the short summaries, let's say, only 20 lines, together with the actors that are involved, the project partners. They are all on the EIP website, so you can find each other around a similar topic. Not so long ago, I had a call from somebody from DG Grow who wanted to do something around plastics and avoiding plastics. We just did a search in the EIP website, and we found 19 operational groups that were working around plastics, and also a few Horizon multi-actor projects. So they are all in the same database. You can find the connection details, and this is something we will continue in the next CAP period, and of course also Horizon Europe period. So definitely, I think this synergy is absolutely key.
Okay, yes, thanks. Maybe to connect to another point from the policy brief Walter presented, that was about can we get more flexibility in the future in projects, in calls, for example, in terms of deliverables, partner entry or exit, because actually the evolution of the project of the partner participation is actually asking for an entry or an exit. How do you see that from like a European committee perspective?
Well, of course, I work in DG Agri. We are not the masters of the game. This is in DG RTD where the general rules are made. But I am in fact surprised to see how much you have been able to do with case studies. We have another project with case study, Share, where they are testing digital tools, again, to share across Europe. One country is working with it, and other countries can learn from it. And they also worked with case studies, and that also worked. So I think there are possibilities, but maybe not sufficiently understood by each of the project officers. And it would be nice, indeed, if you have it here in your recommendations to emphasize this, because it opens up your world in your Horizon project, if you can do these things with case studies, and it brings in a lot. I heard you saying that it also takes a lot of time, but I think it's not wasted time, it's very important time, because on the one hand, there's a social effect, building trust, I heard, and also on the other hand, you come at the level of the place where the practitioner eventually has to apply what you are testing. And this is what I call impact. If you can convince a farmer or a number of farmers in the end through your case studies or through your interconnections with operational groups to apply this in the field, then we get really impact of your scientific work. And I think this is absolutely very much worthwhile. We are building therefore a unique EU knowledge reservoir where we will have all the projects in full, not just summaries, but everything which is on the website, from videos, podcasts, you name it. And you would be able to find them quite easily. We already have a pilot, so in 2-3 years we hope to have this really working, so that these things can be found and further explored. But as you in fact illustrated, there are already possibilities in the current framework. I don't know if you had to do a lot of efforts to have these case studies, or if it went quite easy. But probably we should do it more, and you should share your experience with your fellow researchers to work this way, because I think it's an ideal combination to have an EU project where you can share around Europe what you learn from things close in the field.
Yes, thank you. And maybe to conclude this conversation and contribution of you, it was hard work, and it is always also hard work to get all the case studies in the proposal writing period in a good way into the proposal. And that's also actually one of the recommendations we make in the policy brief to move along with this kind of social groups. And not only project-wise with one project, but also beyond projects, because impact is very often really achieved beyond a project deadline. Inge, thank you for your contribution. Very nice to have you here online in the meeting. I don't have time anymore because I have very good dinner. I don't have time anymore because I don't have my phone anymore. It was interfering with the mic, so I have all the time of the world. Is there maybe a question? Because I know we are over time already, and that we are actually longing for coffee or tea. Is there something from the audience? One question or one remark? You're allowed to. Then I'll just give the floor. Walter, do you want to, are you okay, and shall we just finish it up? Okay. Thank you for now. 15 minutes.